Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Melanin Margin, the weekly chat show where conversations about race are never off the table. We're your hosts, Quaviondre Williams.
And Daquon Wilson.
So let's get into this week's conversation. What's hot on the table this week? In an article on Forbes magazine written by Kate O'Flaherty, we learned that people have been sharing their Netflix passwords for years, and the streaming giant actually used to encourage the practice. Who could forget that Netflix tweet back in 2017 that read, "Love is sharing a password"? At the time, Netflix's strategy was much more about eyeballs on the screens. It didn't care who shared their passwords if a ton of people were watching. But 5 years later, things are very different. Netflix is struggling financially against growing competition from other streamers such as Disney, and that's on top of the global economic downturn. The figures say it all. Netflix lost nearly 1 million subscribers between April and July 2022 as people decided to quit the service. Netflix has tried pulling its prices up, but it's not enough. There are 100 million people sharing passwords, and Netflix wants to monetize them. According to Netflix's shareholder letter, password sharing will end by the close of the first quarter of the year, which could be as early as March 31st. Now, there is no exact date confirmed yet, and Netflix is still testing various scenarios to gain feedback from their streamers. So, Daquon, I want to ask you, do you think that this is a good idea for Netflix, or could this end up being their swan song that turns them into the next Blockbuster?
Well, I don't think it's blockbuster level yet. I don't think this is the nail in the coffin that's like, all right, Netflix is dead. I don't think that it's a great idea at all. In fact, I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's an okay idea. It's a bad idea. Because Netflix is worried about the wrong thing here. I think Netflix is so focused on just trying to get as much money as possible, when in reality, their focus should be on retaining the subscribers that they do have. And a
Mhm.
move like this is only going to push more subscribers out and onto other platforms. I think Netflix's biggest problem is that it's not that people are, just hoarding all of these accounts and they're all using the same account, because let's be real, password sharing, it's going to happen regardless.
Yeah.
But the problem is that Netflix isn't putting enough value on their platform to make
Mhm.
people want to have their own accounts. Because at the end of the day, if you have a Netflix subscription, you'll find a show that you like, you'll watch like the first few seasons, and then all of a sudden it gets cut. And it's like, girl, this was the show. Like, y'all should have been putting money into this. And
Yeah.
then all of the good shows just get cut and they don't get renewed for second seasons, third, whatever. You're left on these cliffhangers and left with
Mhm.
all of these plot holes that should have been filled in future seasons, but those future seasons will never come to be. So it's like, what's the point of having my own subscription to this service if I feel like I'm not really getting that value as a customer? I think this is like business 101. If you aren't seeing the numbers that you want, think about what it is that the consumers want. I don't think it's, oh, the consumers intentionally want to share these passwords just to stick it to Netflix and not give them
Yeah.
enough money. It's all right, like I use Netflix sometimes, but I don't use Netflix all the time. So you can also use my Netflix, and because it doesn't make sense for me to pay all of this money when I'm not really using the service all that much. If there's only like one or two shows that I watch every now and then, or if it's a show that I watch, I binge watch it and then I'm done for the month, I don't have any other
Mhm.
shows that I want to watch. So I think that Netflix should really focus on retaining their current customer base and making sure that they provide value so that people feel inclined to subscribe and to keep their own subscriptions. It's simple.
Ye- Yeah, bitch. If Netflix does this shit for real, they will fuck up their paper big time. Like, I really think that Netflix really forgot that they are not that girl anymore. Shit, to be
At all.
honest, Girl, they haven't been that girl for a very long time. Like,
They thought they
don't
were
get
the
me.
only one.
They really thought they thought they were that one. They thought they were that girl, baby. Get somebody else to do it. Like, don't get me wrong. They do come out with a couple of bops every now and then. You know, there was the Orange and the New Black, and some people like Stranger Things too. You know, and I think that they are one of the streaming services that people often look toward to pick up shows that were previously dropped by TV networks like Manifest and Lucifer, both of which were incredibly popular shows that I'm sure brought Netflix big coin. But girl, that is not enough to pull the shit that they're trying to pull right now. Like, Netflix had a monopoly on the streaming market for a very long time, so much so that the streaming giant has become a household name and has been the go-to service that people talk about in movies, TV shows, and even books that are set in the modern era. Like, Netflix is so integrated into pop culture that even when people are hooking up with their special someones while watching any streaming service, it is still known as Netflix and chilling. Unfortunately, I think that Netflix has let this popularity go to their head big time. And this whole password sharing ploy is a clear indication of that. I think that Netflix is severely overestimating how many people need to use their service, and they need someone to sit them down and give them a real reality check. What made Netflix so popular back in the day is all the licenses that they had to stream many of the most popular movies and TV shows at the time. They had contracts with some major heavy hitters that allowed them to show hit movies and TV shows that couldn't be watched unless you purchased or rented the DVD yourself. It was more affordable and economical at the time when Netflix was first coming up to purchase the streaming service for like what, $10 a month at the time, and see hundreds of movies and TV shows versus buying a few DVDs at a time. Like, the demand for a variety of TV and films to watch was high, and Netflix had the biggest supply for the lowest cost at the time. But I have to stress that at the time part very hard, because in 2023, Netflix has lost its footing quickly. Like, while they were very innovative at the time, not just with their supply of movies and TV shows, but with their decision to start streaming and creating their own content, times have changed significantly. Now, I'm not a data analyst, but I think that the reason Netflix may be losing money has little to do with the amount of people who are actively paying for a Netflix subscription, but the fact that their competition is steadily rising and people are just moving to streaming services that are more catered toward their specific interests. Like, Netflix is struggling to keep up with the competition because their business model was originally created as a streaming service for the movies and TV shows of their competition. Now that their competition is taking back their content for their own platforms, people who used to have Netflix for Disney shows and movies are leaving Netflix for Disney Plus. The same of HBO movies and TV shows, Paramount, and so on. The same thing I think that Netflix is too focused on is trying to monetize the amount of eyes on the screen, like the article pointed out, instead of trying to focus on the quality of content like you're talking about by what they're trying to put in front of those eyes. But before I go off about that, Daquon, before I really read into that, because I got an idea that I want to run past you, bitch, but I want to ask you first, what are some of the ways that you think that Netflix could try to stay ahead of the game as far as streaming services are concerned?
I think Netflix really needs to focus on what is its brand. Like, what
Yes.
does Netflix do and what does it do well? What is the market exactly that Netflix is trying to cater towards? Like you said, if you want Disney, if you want Marvel films, if you want any of that, you have Disney Plus. You're going to go there. And
Yeah.
so Netflix needs to find what's its calling card, because it was that jack of all trades. It did everything. You wanted a
Mm-hmm.
Disney show, we have Disney shows. You wanted these blockbuster movies, we have that.
Mm-hmm.
But now, like you said, they're getting taken off, getting put onto other platforms. Netflix needs to do something to rebrand itself and really define what it is that they want that platform to be. And they also need to make sure that they're doing something that really sets them apart from their other competitors. Because at the end of the day, nobody has time nor the money to have all of these different platforms. Nobody wants Netflix and Disney Plus and Hulu and Paramount Plus and Showtime. Like, Netflix needs to get on the game of figuring out what they can do to provide the most value, to maybe bundle some things in, get something to where you can have so much more with a Netflix subscription than you can with a Disney subscription, or that you can, because even things like Spotify, you can get Spotify, Hulu, and Showtime with one specific bundle. And so I think Netflix needs to find a way that they can stand out in terms of how much value they can have, what their brand is, and exactly who they want to market towards.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if Netflix moves forward with this business plan, they are really about to play fuck around and find out. Um, and I think that the most important aspect of streaming services, even more so than the content they produce, is and will forever be their convenience. It's why we pay for streaming services to begin with. People were tired of only being able to watch their favorite TV shows and movies at home, which is a lot of the reason why cable is slowly but surely going out of style as well. If Netflix removes their password sharing option, they'll be taking away the core of what makes their streaming service a fucking streaming service. Like, if I can only use Netflix when I'm at home, then why not just get cable? At least cable companies are trying to keep up with the times by having apps that allow you to stream your cable and on-demand movies from your devices from wherever you want. But like I touched on earlier, Netflix is missing the bigger picture here. If they are trying to make more money and bring in more people to purchase their service, then they need to alter their business model. Now, Daquon, you kind of touched on this too, and I kind of want to hammer it home with my idea, bitch, and I want to hear your thoughts on it, bitch. Now, again, I don't have a business degree, and I'm not a data analyst, so I don't know how applicable the strategy that I'm about to detail is, but bitch, here we the fuck go. So, a lot of what I've heard people say is that Netflix should invest in their original content. And I agree. But I think a little specificity may be of help here. If Netflix wants to bring in more consumers to their platform, original content shouldn't be secondary to the content they acquire through licensing. It should be their primary source of content. Secondly, I think that what made Netflix stand out in the beginning and what turned it into the streaming service, giant that it is now, was, like you said, Daquon, their innovation. So let's keep with that trend. One thing that I've heard many streaming service consumers complain about the most across the board is that streaming services have canceled shows way too soon and never give these shows a true chance to pull in viewers. Now, many of the original shows released by streaming services are so bogged down by the massive amounts of content on the platform that some pretty amazing shows get unnoticed and get canceled because of that. How about, instead of just canceling shows based off of viewing statistics that don't always match up to the fan engagement or appreciation of the work, let your subscribers decide. Now, let's say that a few times a year, or whenever Netflix thinks that a show isn't performing the way they want it to, instead of just canceling the show, Netflix creates a poll in their platform of a lineup of shows that they are considering to cancel. But before they do, they'll let their users vote on which shows they want to see come back. And at the end of the period of, let's say, a month, right? Netflix takes in the poll and renews the top 3 highest voted shows and gives them a season renewal. And to take it a step further, every paid Netflix account could account as 1 vote. So eager fans of the shows would likely purchase a Netflix subscription, even just for 1 month, to vote on saving their favorite show. Not only that, but it also creates a sort of user engagement that I don't think any other streaming services have utilized yet. As I've said before, people look to Netflix as the go-to service to petition to save a recently canceled show. Why doesn't Netflix capitalize on this image with their own shows. Not only would they get the money from the people who bought accounts just to vote, but for the shows that are saved through the voting system, the fans would be way more likely to retain their Netflix subscription just in case they have to vote again sometime in the future for another show. Now, it could even be its own category within the subscription service. I would say maybe call it hashtag Netflix save or hashtag Netflix renew, which would not only promote a positive media attention with Twitter and Instagram, TikTok, and stuff like that, but it will revamp the Netflix platform as the streaming service that truly does value the opinion of its users. Now, again, I don't know how applicable this could be in their business model, but I truly believe that this could be the thing that sets Netflix apart from other streaming services in such a significant and awesome way. But Daquon, what do you think? What do you think, Mitch? What do you think?
I think that's getting onto something. And I also want to say that it is currently February 12th, 2023. So if we see this in the future, if this change is made, y'all know when this is filmed. So y'all know when we said it first. Okay? All right. But I do think that it gets at this point of really connecting to the consumer, because I think even beyond streaming services, other streaming service, Netflix has to compete with social media, because social media is another big part of entertainment. And I think that they've tried to do that with like shows where they take social media stars and put them on a Netflix show. But of course, those don't have that same connection to the audience. And so I do like this idea of Netflix doing something to really connect to their subscribers, to really connect to the people who are on their platform. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people don't have any connection to Netflix. They don't have any connection to Disney Plus. It's just, I want to watch this show.
And it's on this platform.
It's on this platform. So they need to make sure that they are connecting the show and the consumer base. And so that idea of the polls could be a way in terms of, if I know my show's on the chopping block, I'm going to have my
bitch, I'm going to purchase it immediately.
I'm going to make sure that my card is correct in my Netflix account so that they can get charged and be put. So, because I want my show to last.
Exactly.
And it also creates like this kind of, it creates more of a community, because then you have other people who are like, okay, y'all, we're fans of this show. Let's make sure that we get this going. Let's make sure that we create noise around this so that we can get those numbers. And I think that even in some other media, like I've seen certain anime and certain TV shows literally polling their fans on who are the most interesting characters and then doing a spinoff on that character.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to find a way to innovate and engage your audience. And that is definitely a way.
And I think that it's also just like giving that excitement. Like imagine feeling like, even if Netflix doesn't directly considering, makes their own little tweaks or whatever, because, businesses do what they do. But like, even if it's only a facade, the idea of having your users feel like they're a part of the decision-making process is such a massive way to pull in that, like, Netflix gives a fuck. Like, does that make sense?
Right.
It's like why about what we think.
It's like why all of those like reality shows like American Idol and all of that stuff was so big, because people felt like, we can call into the show, we can put our votes in, and we can support the people we want so that they can continue, so that they can get those opportunities. It's the same thing. And it's just like Netflix, you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
You really don't.
Reinvent the wheel.